Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Javier with The Real Javier Novoa, a channel, a platform, and a modality where we apply the principles of spirituality, philosophy, mysticism, and business, and common sense and life hacks to rapid lifestyle transformation. And I thank you for joining us tonight, ladies and gentlemen, because I have a video that is going to be a practical exercise that you can take home and use. It's going to be useful to a lot of viewers. It's from a coaching call that we did yesterday, and I got permission from the clients to use this. Of course, we would never use names and so on and so forth, but it's going to be very useful to you wherever you are in your journey, because the usefulness of the methodology is proven in the extremes, and here we have an extreme case. But first, I'd like to extend an invitation to you. If you're a new viewer, or maybe you viewed our videos for a long time, if you find value in our work, and I think our channel is unique in that we're taking all of these philosophic, spiritual principles and applying them to practicing them for your rapid lifestyle transformation, please subscribe to the channel. You'll join a community of people who are on our way to becoming master manifestors. You'll be getting daily alerts to the videos that I release every day. I have a commitment to release a video of great value every single day. That's my commitment to my subscribers. But you'll also be helping us get the word out. I believe that we are playing a part in the global awakening, this global awakening from materialism to rediscover our roots and rediscover why we came. I know that the times are calling for that, and in this video, you're going to see why that is. But I will give you a chance to subscribe. Please hit the subscribe button below. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. So, ladies and gentlemen, I always said from the beginning of this channel, we released a lot of videos for this, that I'm not here as your run-of-the-mill law of attraction, law of assumption coach to the privileged or to the middle class exclusively. Of course, I have rich clients, I have middle class clients, I have poor clients, but I'm not here assuming that you come from a privileged background, that you are middle class or wealthy, or that you have a great deal of savings or a great deal of cushion, and so on. I was reading a work that I had read years ago by a great voice in Wall Street named James Altucher. And he used to have a very popular blog, and I'd recommend his books and his works. They're very good when it comes to stimulating creativity. They're very good when it comes to showing you how to craft your own life, and we do draw on some of his materials here in our video. But I remember I was reading an article of his about what to do when you lose your job. And he said basically, just take a little bit of time off, relax, and know that you'll not get this freedom. You might not get this freedom again while you have a job, and that's true, but he's assuming that someone has the savings laid aside to take a few days or a few weeks off work, collect their thoughts, and so on and so forth. And we do recommend this, and if you follow the processes of this channel, you will very soon have those resources. Indeed, it is our promise that if you follow the processes of this channel, you will be free from a job and a boss within 6 months to a year, if you so desire that. But the assumption that a lot of these teachers and coaches make is that their clientele, their audience, has a certain amount of privilege. I don't make that assumption. I'm here to help everybody whom I can help, and especially those who are the most downtrodden, because these are the most interesting cases. As I said in another video, you know, the middle class and the upper middle class. I mean, if you are upper middle class, I love you as well, and it's all a mentality. It's not an income, by the way. But middle class and upper middle class sort of bores me, because it's just basically, they got out of college, they got a job, they really never had any experience of any real contrast when it came to economic areas. And, they just sort of live their lives, and their income goes up by a certain amount of percentage points a year, and so on and so forth. It's not interesting. The very wealthy interest me especially those who got there due to their inventiveness, because they are proof of this law of assumption methodology, whether they know it or not. The very poor interest me, those who are interested in bettering their situation, because it's a very good case study for these principles. And so I am, in other videos, I have talked about the fact that we are setting aside a portion of our work to help those in prison and help those who are poor, perhaps populations whom many other spiritual coaches and coaches in law of assumption, law of attraction do not help. Peter Sage is one of those who had experience in prison and is now also actively trying to help people in prison, and I appreciate that work. All of this is leading to the fact that I was talking to a client yesterday, and this client is in very dire straits. He just got out of a relationship that's been lasting for a few years. He was depressed about that. He's behind on his rent and he's about to lose his apartment. In fact, his apartment said that by the middle of the month he has to get out. He has no outside help from any family members, and his employers at his job have hinted to him that there are going to be layoffs and that they may not need him. So this person is basically stuck, not in low-grade negative emotions like most people. He's stuck in fear and anxiety. And I did talk him out of that, and I gave him some tools and techniques that he could use to assuage that. And I want to show you, I want to demonstrate to you the tools and techniques that you can use. In preparation for this talk today, I reread some of the great works of the spiritual authors, the Stoic authors, and the philosophers of the past. Stoicism is the ideal modality to apply to these negative emotions, especially the extreme negative emotions below worry and all the way to grief and anxiety. Stoicism is your best friend there, and it will heal you. It will allow you to arise out of these situations. I was rereading The Inner Citadel, which is a gloss on the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I was also rereading The Consolation of Philosophy by Boethius. Boethius was a high political official who fell out of favor with the Visigoths during the time of the very end of the Roman Empire, and he was imprisoned and killed unjustly. And while he was in prison, he basically wrote this poetic compilation called The Consolation of Philosophy, where he exposes many elements of Platonic philosophy. And it was basically a work where he depicts philosophy as embodied by a woman, and this woman comes and basically talks him off the ledge, so to speak, and takes him from the extreme depths of despair to divine happiness, to divine beatitude. And this is very important. It's very important to know how to console ourselves and to know which works to turn to when we are in those negative emotions, because as law of attraction teaches us, as Abraham Hicks talks about, our vibration is shown to us by the emotion that we feel. Therefore, the more negative the emotions, the more negative we are vibrating. And if we continue to vibrate negative, we will simply continue to bring ourselves negative. If we are able to climb that scale just a little bit and relieve ourselves and get into positive emotions like contentment, then it'll be easier for us to get up that scale. And when we're feeling better, ipso facto, we are vibrating better, therefore we will begin to attract to us better outcomes. This is a dimensional explanation of this, but it is really effective. And so it's very important for us to break up that muck. So again, works that I'd recommend. The Meditations by Marcus Aurelius is a very important one. We're going to read some passages from that. The second work is The Consolation of Philosophy. These are works that everyone, no matter your religious or philosophical background, can read because they are non-affiliated. They're Stoic, and they can be understood and appreciated by anyone who has a mind. Of course, if you're in the Muslim faith, the Islamic faith, the Quran is going to be your go-to, and the Hadith of the inspirational hadith and the inspirational ayat of the Quran, especially reading Surah Yusuf, which is a very, very hard-hitting work, and it will help you get out of these times of grief as you follow, for example, Yusuf alayhi salam, Yaqub alayhi salam. If you follow the Judeo-Christian tradition, the story of Daniel in the lion's den is going to be a great ally in that. There are also many other biblical stories, like the prophet and the widow, and so on and so forth, which will help you get out of that. Always turn to those. Also, another great constant companion of mine is How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. When you dip to these negative emotions due to circumstances, you can always find consolation in these works. So basically, I want this video to act as a sort of go-to video. I want you to save it in your favorites. I want it to be a video that you can return to when you're facing hard times, as you inevitably will, because contrast is what we came for, ladies and gentlemen. Contrast is what launches those desires. So to a greater or lesser extent, you will face hard circumstances. You're not always going to be at peace. But with videos like this, and what I want you to do is watch it enough times. This is a video to repeat. This is a video to return to, because I want you to watch it enough times that you are trained in being able to do it yourself. So I want this video to become your go-to video when you're facing a hard situation, especially the situation that this gentleman is facing. Think about it. He is at or near what many people could term rock bottom. And there are many different methodologies for pulling yourself up out of that. The methodology that a lot of people use is just focusing on something else, and then they may be in a period of depression, and then eventually they will get out of it. But what a skilled and deliberate application of the principles of consolation will do to help you is that it will get you out of that mindset quicker, and then allow the situation to simply evaporate. And we're going to show you how to do that in this video. So what I want to do is we're going to sort of explain the principles very briefly. Then I want to read some passages from some great works like The Inner Citadel by Pierre Hadot, which is a commentary on Marcus Aurelius. Also, I want to read some from Neville Goddard, just very briefly laying the groundwork for this. And then I want to walk you through my processes that I use to console myself. Indeed, to have your own consolation of philosophy, your own inner conversations. Many times I will write this down, because Marcus Aurelius used his meditations as a personal journal. It was never meant to be published. And he used it to console himself, to inform himself, and to remind himself. So, always journaling and having your own journal is handy. You don't have to write it down, though. And in fact, if you're in extreme negative emotion, like we're talking about depression or despair or anger, you don't want to write things down, because then that will just intensify the emotion, which is okay too, because then when you relieve yourself just a little bit from that emotion, you will have great results. So it's all okay. And none of these processes are a must. These are just processes that have worked for me and my clients over the years, and I want to share them with you. I want to share them with the world here in this video. So pay close attention. So the first aspect of this is, remember, it's all about the thoughts that you choose. And remember, as a great philosopher said, thoughts are oftentimes not your own. They're not you, in fact. A lot of times they come from the ether, but it's up to us whether to accept that thought. But when we're not on guard about our thoughts, when we're not selective about our thoughts, they leak into the subconscious, and then it becomes a part of our personality. But when those thoughts and feelings come again, we can choose what we do with them. And as Epictetus says, thoughts are in the category of something that we can't necessarily choose all of the time, because sometimes momentum will just have thoughts running wild in your mind. But what we can do is choose our reaction to them. And so this is the first major point here, is that when you have a negative emotion and negative thought, or when you hit rock bottom like this gentleman who is my client and who had a coaching call with me, the first thing you should do is rejoice. That's right. Because you know what? Not only is this why I came, but if this problem is so huge, as the great Graham Cook says, who is a preacher, but he understands these principles beautifully. He says, if the problem is that big, imagine how big the provision is. Because of course God, when He gives us a problem, and as we know, divinity is one, there's no separation. But for the sake of the game and for the sake of the conscious and unconscious mind, which seems separate in this reality, and you're probably not going to be able to sense the unity or get out of the duality while you're in extreme negative emotion, just know that when God gives you a problem, He also gives a provision equal to and greater than that problem. So if the problem is this big, imagine how big the provision is, and call a friend and say, hey, I got a problem, and brag about it. Now, you don't necessarily have to do that, but just know it. And remember, it doesn't matter how you feel, it doesn't matter how you believe it, but you have to know it. And this knowing will guide you through the rest of this process. Just know that it's a blessing to have this problem, even though it doesn't feel like it, and know that you're going to get on the other side of this. It's going to be so much wisdom, so much joy, and so much wealth that's going to leave you staggered, and you're going to be happy that you went through this valley. So it's all about choosing the thoughts that we're going to think. It's all about choosing the framing of it, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, Abraham Hicks said this well. Just because something's true doesn't mean that it's something that you want to focus on right now, doesn't mean that it's going to help you. Focus on the thoughts that will help you in the moment get to the next level. I remember when I was studying Islamic studies with a scholar, the classical scholars always said, in Islam, as in every spiritual tradition and philosophy, and in fact, if you read in William James' book, The Varieties of Religious Experience, he gives all of the spectrum of these experiences. There's a religion of joy, and there's a religion of sadness and grief, and suffering. There's asceticism, and there's joy. And these are neither good nor bad. They're just different modalities. Of course, I've always been more attracted to the spirituality of joy. But the Muslim scholars always said, choose those aspects that are going to help you take righteous action. And what we mean by that in this context is, are going to help you move up to the next level so that you're able to take action. Because if you're depressed and you're all the way down the emotional scale, you're not going to be able to take any action, you're not going to be able to hear inspiration, and you're going to fall more and more into that quicksand until you shift. And unfortunately, some people don't shift in this experience. They have to die and go into another experience. We don't want you to have to do that here on The Real Javier Novoa. With these processes, you can get out of a funk within a few hours, ladies and gentlemen, in many cases within 30 minutes. I remember Abraham Hicks said, if we have the undivided attention of anyone, we can get them into the vortex, which means into joy, from any state on the emotional scale within half an hour. If you really focus on this, you can get out of the depths of depression within half an hour. You might have to do it again tomorrow or again in a few hours, but if you do it enough, you will get out of that rut, and that's the most important thing right now. If you're in extreme negative emotion, if you're hitting rock bottom, before you do anything, before you take any action, because any action that you take right now is not going to be the proper action anyway. We need to get you out of that muck. I know a lot of law of attraction and law of assumption coaches emphasize the fact that we create our own reality. If you're in a negative reality, it's because of you. And even one law of attraction coach recently that I frequent from time to time, she was saying that even babies who are in horrific situations create that, and that is their creation. That's horrible. Now, we're not saying that this is technically not true according to the measurements, because as you vibrate, you attract. But is that going to help you right now? Does that thought feel good that it's your fault? We know that we create everything that we attract into our experience. You pelican, it is all part of our experience. We are the experience. But is focusing on that right now, when you're in an extreme state of negative emotion, the best thing to focus on? No, it's not. The thing that you want to focus upon right now is trying the best you can to be soft with yourself and to make wherever you are be somewhat alright, so that you can get to boredom, you can get to contentment, and you can get a little bit up the scale. So remember, choose those thoughts and modalities that are going to work best for you. You also don't want to go straight to extreme joy and try to get into extreme joy when you're in the depths of despair and fear. Now, we did talk about this in other videos. Sometimes it works for some people. If you're in extreme fear, try to go into extreme excitement. But for this reality, like what this young man is facing, when homelessness is facing him in the face, you need another modality. You need a softer modality. And I hope this video is going to serve to try to get you to that modality. And Stoicism, ladies and gentlemen, is the thing that you want to focus on, and faith. Okay? You want to read those aspects of the Quran that are talking directly to people who are suffering. You want to read those aspects of the Bible that are speaking directly to those who are in the depths of hell. As David said in the Psalms, though I make my bed in hell, thou art with me. And then you can embrace even being in hell. The first thing you want to do is to, this is actually a great chance, by the way, to realize your true nature, and to realize that everything on the outer is ephemeral and doesn't matter really anyway, because it's nothing compared to who you truly are and to the point at which you are still and from whence you came. Marcus Aurelius talks about this a lot. You see, your reality isn't very good right now. And no one's going to try to lie and say that your reality is good. You're on rock bottom. You can see that your reality is not good. Why would you focus on that? So you need to shake yourself up, and you need to read with me some of the passages from the Inner Citadel, from Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, to sort of drive the point home that this life is nothing anyway. Who cares? At least that'll sort of start to soften the negative emotions you're feeling, and it will help you get up. So, Marcus Aurelius said this. He said, soon you will have forgotten everything, and soon everyone will have forgotten you. Remember, there's death. And especially in some of these situations, this will be relieving also. All of this one day is going to mean nothing, so who cares? This is going to help you. He also said, everything is ephemeral. That which remembers and that which is remembered. So really, who cares? All of these negative emotions that we're going to start feeling and start sort of cycling so that we can evaporate them, it doesn't matter anyway. It doesn't even matter if this process works for you. What matters is knowing who you are. And if you get that out of this, it will have served its purpose. It will have served its meaning. Another thing he said is, leave your books alone. Don't let yourself be distracted any longer. You can't allow yourself that anymore. So stop studying theory here. Of course, we're reading from the books, but stop studying this. Now's the time to put this into practice. And you who are now supposedly about to lose your home, about to lose your job, have no savings, by the way. This gentleman has no savings, like many Americans. It's time to stop being distracted. It's time to implement this now as a matter of urgency. He said, throw away your thirst for reading. Throw away your thirst for searching for things on the internet and for reading about law of attraction, law of assumption. Now it's time to practice, so that when you die, or when you're in a very horrible situation, you will not be grumbling, but you will be in true serenity, thanking God from the bottom of your heart. And he said, let these thoughts be enough if they are life principles for you. These thoughts will serve you, and they will help navigate you again into realizing who you really are, which is what this situation is all about. Now, what does he say about philosophy in general? And they're the principles that we talk about in this channel, the perennial philosophy. He says, what is it then that can escort you in order to protect you in this life? You need protection right now, because things aren't looking too good. Okay? One thing you need. Not money, not a safety net, not someone to help you out right now. Because once you have this one thing, all of that will be added unto you. Like Jesus said, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and then everything else will be added unto you. One thing you need, philosophy, philosophia, the love of wisdom, the love of truth. It consists in keeping your inner God, the connection with God within, who you really are, free from pollution and from damage. Pollution by negative thoughts, pollution by negative beliefs, and damage. And here is a major aspect of this that is going to really drive it home for you. He says, on the occasion of everything that causes you sadness, remember to use this dogma. Not only is this not a misfortune, not only that is what is happening to you now not a misfortune, even though your feelings are still there, my brother, but it is a piece of good fortune for you to bear up under it courageously. And we're going to see as we move up the emotional scale how exciting this is. You're living your own real life laboratory to apply these principles and to prove to yourself once and for all, and we're going to use this as a case study later to prove to the rest of the world that these principles work, that it is not the physical, that you're not living on the physical. This is your test. Live up to it. Bear with it courageously. And this last passage that I want to read, I want you to reflect on it before we go into the actual exercises. Marcus Aurelius said, if you are annoyed at something, and understand this, that if you're worried about something, if you're depressed about something, any of the negative emotions, it is because you have forgotten. And I want to, through Marcus Aurelius, remind you of these absolute truths. If there's absolute truth, this is it. That everything happens in accordance with universal nature. And what does that mean? That means everything happens in accordance with law of attraction, law of assumption. And that's good, because it means that once you put yourself in the flow of this law, everything will go into your favor. And everything indeed is in your favor. That whatever fault was committed is not your concern. That means if someone's been unjust to you, that harmed them. That has nothing to do with harming you. Do not allow it to harm you. So you can blame others and it can feel better. And in fact, moving up from depression to blame is a good thing. But know ultimately that you don't have to blame others, because that's going to be resolved within them, and it has nothing. No one else can hurt you. No environmental factors can hurt you. Only you can harm you. And moreover, that everything that happens has always happened thus, and will always happen thus, and is, at this very moment, happening thus everywhere. And this is the law of return, and this has to be understood generally and vibrationally, meaning the same causes always cause the same effects, which means how you're vibrating always causes the response. Of course, you can be out of that. You can be out of that by immediately knowing and recognizing your divinity, your unity with the One, and then you are already in there. And you can do that within a moment's notice. You can do it now. But it's also helpful, especially if you're in extreme negative emotion, to follow the processes that we're giving here. How close is the relationship between man and the whole human race? For this is no community of blood or seed, but of the intellect. My friend, everyone is an actor playing his or her part. So even the boss that fired you, the girlfriend who dumped you, the family who rejected you, they're all just actors playing a part. And you know what? They're in your film role. And once you get onto another film role, as the producer of that, you can have that immediately be different. And you can get there today. If you can only release this negative energy, you can get there today, now, within a matter of minutes. We're going to show you how. You've also forgotten that the intellect of each person is God, and that it has flowed down here from above, which means that your true intellect, represented by the pineal gland, of course, which is in tune with the divine forces, is the divine. It's one. In fact, you are all one, because there's no division, there's no duality in reality. And this is a great time to wake up to that and to realize that. And that nothing belongs to us in any straight sense. So you haven't lost anything. Just like the comedian in The Life of Brian says, you came from nothing, you'll go back to nothing. So what have you lost? Nothing. And then you start laughing about it. And that everything is a judgment value, meaning no matter what happens, it's up to you to assign a value to that of good or bad. And you can assign a value of good in it. There's a great book called Zen and the Art of Happiness, and the author said, you can just make the decision today to say that everything that happens to me, whether good or bad, is to stimulate my growth. It's for me. And as another great motivational speaker says, life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. And if you'll adopt that attitude, then no matter what happens, you can watch and say, you know what? This is for my advantage. It really is a decision. And as Epictetus said, he would have his students say, so-and-so went to prison. And Epictetus would say, is there anything more? And the student would say, there's nothing more, which means that him going to prison is not ascribed to value judgment. It's simply stated as a fact, then accepted, and then we can move up that emotional scale, and we can change it quicker than you imagine. And the only thing each of us lives and loses is the present. Remember that. Nothing can happen to you that's not this present moment. So nothing can happen to you tomorrow. So you're not going to be removed from your apartment in 10 days. That may happen, and it may happen now, but nothing is happening now. And of course, we're not saying don't plan. Indeed, that's part of this also, planning and doing what you can on this film roll. But right now, just be in the now. That's going to help you. And now the author, Pierre Hadot, basically summarizes the meditations. I want to do this very quickly for you, and we're about to go into the practical exercises. And this is going to help you because it's going to help you contemplate the essence of life. And this in alone may help you get out of a rut. He says, from the absolute primary principle according to which the only good is moral good and the only good is moral evil, which means, ladies and gentlemen, that nothing is good or bad unless it makes you bad as a human being. And the only thing that would make you bad as a human being, and even these are two strong terms, but the only thing that would be morally evil is for you to continue to allow something into your space once you know that it's to your detriment. And you would never do that willingly. Nothing else is good or evil. So nothing that happens to you can be good or evil. It follows that neither pleasure nor pain are evils. That the only thing shameful is moral evil. The only thing shameful is to know these principles and not to live by them. You're living by them. That faults committed against us cannot touch us. So my boss firing me, it cannot touch me. Cannot touch the inner core. That he who commits a fault hurts only himself. We said this before. And that the fault cannot be found elsewhere than within oneself. So if you don't ascribe blame, the fault's not occurred. It further follows that I can suffer no harm whatsoever from the actions of anyone else. From the general principles, only that which depends on us can be either good or evil, and our judgment and our sense depend on us. It follows the only evil or trouble there can be for us resides in our own judgment. That is to say, the way we represent things to ourselves. And that people are the authors of their own problems. Everything, therefore, is a matter of judgment. The intellect is independent of the body, and things do not come inside us in order to trouble us. If everything is a matter of judgment, every fault is in fact a false judgment, and proceeds from ignorance, and he says go higher up still. Starting from the principle that if we reject atoms, it must be nature which governs all. So I want you to contemplate on this. And I want to read just a tiny passage from Neville Goddard about Daniel in the lion's den. He says, the story of Daniel is the story of every man. It is recorded that Daniel, while locked in the lion's den, turned his back upon the hungry beasts, and with his vision turned toward the light coming from above, he prayed to the one and only God. The lions, who were purposely starved for the feast, remained powerless to hurt the prophet. Daniel's faith in God was so great that it finally brought about his freedom and his appointment to a high office in the government of this country. This story was written for you to instruct you in the art of freeing yourself from any problem in the world. Most of us, on finding ourselves in the lion's den, would be concerned only with the lions. We would not be thinking of any problem in the whole world but that of the lions. Yet we are told that Daniel turned his back upon them and looked toward the light that was God. If we could follow the example of Daniel while threatened with any dire disaster such as lions, poverty, or sickness, we could remove our attention to the light that is God. Our solutions would be similarly simple. From Neville Goddard. Now what are we going to do? We're going to turn our mind to the light for just a few minutes. I'm going to show you a process by which you can get out of any negative emotion to positive emotion, and do this before you start trying to make things better on the ground. And it's very quick. It could be from 10 to 30 minutes. We're not going to take that long, but follow the process, and I promise you'll have results. And I promise this client that he would have results. We're going to take the point of view that you're about to lose your house and you may become homeless. It's a very scary situation. We don't minimize it in the least. But what we want to do is show you the power of actually, first of all, accepting it, then releasing it. So, first I want you to get in an alpha state. We're going to be doing this throughout the exercise. You want to get back into it. You're going to feel some negative emotion in this exercise, but we want to show you how easy it is to get into alpha states. The fastest way that I see to do it, that I usually do it myself, is to look up onto the horizon and just count from 5 down. 5, 4, 3, I'm getting into alpha right now. 2, and 1. Thank you. Thank you, Father. So now, what am I fearing? You can either write this down or you can just think it to yourself. You can contemplate it. What's the worst that can happen? Because it's within me anyway. And now that I'm sort of observing my feelings, I know that those feelings aren't me. Let's just feel the feelings. Okay, I'm about to lose my house. I fear that that's really reality. I've been given 10 days notice to leave, and I have nowhere else to go. I could also lose my job. So what's the worst that can happen? It's pretty much the worst that could happen to anybody. I could be homeless and on the street. So I'm starting to feel just worry. I'm starting to feel even extreme anxiety. I don't know what I would do about that. In fact, my thoughts are going crazy right now. So, okay. So what's actually the worst that could happen? The worst is happening right now. It's this feeling. So can I just look at this feeling? Can I observe it? And not judge it? It's just a feeling. So yeah, I think I'd probably feel this way if I were living in the streets. And I'd have to sleep out there, and there are all kinds of crazy people, not to mention the shame and embarrassment of society and my family and so on and so forth. But you know what? This feeling it's a physical feeling, and you know what? It feels pretty bad, but I can handle it. Now, if you'll observe this feeling for about a minute, about 60 seconds is what science has said. If you observe it and you stop thinking, and if you completely observe it, you can stop thinking, that feeling will go away within 60 to 90 seconds. And even if it doesn't, you can come back to this later, and we're going to be softening this up. So, once you start see the feeling recede, try to get back into the alpha state. Okay, I'm going back into alpha. So, okay, that's the worst case scenario. Is there anything that I can do to soften that worst case scenario? And then you write those. You say, okay, this is going to sound pathetic to many people, but this is actually the way you do this. You can say, you know what? First of all, I'm going to have a little bit of a paycheck from my job, even if they fire me and even if I am on the street. And I'm not going to pay rent this month because they're kicking me out. So if I'm a homeless person, I'm going to have some money. I'll have some money to eat. And I could perhaps purchase a tent. I know a place where I think I could pitch that tent and be relatively safe. And I could purchase a sleeping bag. And even though this is still horrible, you're sort of giving yourself back power because you're giving yourself options. Okay? And you can do this with any situation that you're facing. Start planning that and journaling that. Soften the worst case scenario. Then you say, okay, you know what? Because living in a room, even a horrible room, a very small room that's listed on the internet, it is going to be better than being homeless, and perhaps I could do that. And even if I can't get another job in my field, I can get a menial job. I could get a job at Subway just to help ends meet. And I can go and find a room for much cheaper. And you know what? I can survive that way, and that's a hell of a lot better than being homeless. Then I might have some other options. In my free time, I can think of other ways to get back into the field in which I was out of. So now you're starting to attain a sort of momentum. Then you can start, and of course this is going to be trial and error, and this might take a little bit longer time. But then you can start thinking of basically general things that have been good in your life. Well, I've had this job for a while, and it's actually not been that bad. And I've been taken care of for all of my life. And it's sort of silly, even though the evidence is there to prove otherwise. It's sort of silly to think that God has taken care of me all these years and that yet He's not going to take care of me later. Maybe there's something that could come out of this that could actually help me out, that could actually, looking back on it, be better, get me on a better trajectory. Then you start journaling that. Then you just get back in the now. You get back into alpha. Then you say, you know what? Right this second, I've planned all that I could plan. And my rational mind has done everything that it could do. Could I perhaps just give myself tonight, because they're not kicking me out tonight, and I still have to go to work tomorrow. I might be fired, but can I just take the rest of the night and sort of treat myself and sort of just try to abide in contentment, try to abide in the now? Well, things aren't that bad right now. Actually, things are pretty good right this second. And as Marcus Aurelius and all the greats said, and Javier says, and is even proved in physics, that no time exists other than the now. So can I just abide in the now? I've thought about that other stuff. I've made plans. I've done everything humanly possible right now. And I'm a really good person. I've got this, and I've been applying this, and you know what, things aren't as bad as they could have been if I didn't know anything about this, and I'm actually feeling pretty good right now. So, you know what? I'm going to order a pizza, and I'm going to enjoy it because I still have some money for food, and I'm going to let whatever happens tomorrow happen tomorrow and just chill out, eat the pizza, and relax. And you know what? You already feel a lot better doing that. Of course, for those who are even more dire straits and can't do this, there's a solution to that too. Which may sound pathetic to some, but this is actually scientifically proven. You can imagine yourself eating a good meal, and scientists have proven through experiments that people feel less hungry when they do that. But you have to actually get into it intensely and imagine yourself having a good meal. If you can't have a good meal, imagine yourself having a good meal. I promise you can do it. But if that gives you negative emotion because you can't have it, then just forget about that and just be completely in the now. But if you have money for a good meal, have a good meal. Give yourself a good meal. And be completely and totally present in that. Put on some good music and be completely and totally present. Now perhaps you can sleep, okay? And either the next time that you have some minutes to do this, you might have to repeat the process again. Or if you can do it after your meal or even after the process, start journaling. Start saying, you know what? I've got my wits about me now. Is there anything actually that I could do to soften this even more? You can say, I haven't thought about this before. Why don't I right now start looking for jobs on the internet in my field and start sending my resumes this very night? I've got nothing to lose. Do that, and I promise you, some opportunity, whether from your job or from another aspect, will come to you. You can also say, well, I do have some good friends, and this is going to sort of be embarrassing, but then feel the embarrassment, by the way. If you are afraid of embarrassment, because a lot of people are, feel the embarrassment, and then say, this is the worst that can happen. It's happening right now, and it's just a feeling, and I can just let it go through me. And then, even if you feel the embarrassment, say, you know what, I'm going to call some friends and tell them that I might be in dire straits, and ask them if just for a few nights I could stay in their house if I lose my apartment until I make ends meet. You have to gauge this on whether you think these people will allow you to, and so on and so forth. But you see, as you arise out of this negative emotion, you start coming up with constructive ideas that may help you get out of it. Now, when you've done this, you're going to feel a sense of relief. You're going to feel a sense of peace, although you will still have some anxiety, and that's fine. But you're not in despair anymore. You're not in fear. Here's where the fun stuff happens. Now you can flip it around. Now you say, what if wild success happened out of this? What would be the best thing that happened out of this? You can start journaling. Well, I keep my job for another few months, or forever maybe. I keep my apartment. Now I've taken these lessons that I've learned, and I'm going to be prepared for that. I can now start setting aside some money. But what's even better than that? I start pursuing my passion, and I get finance to pursue that passion, and I'm now independent of work. Of course, the best thing that can happen is completely up to you, and you have to journal about that. We go into that on this channel. And then you can start imagining scenes. Just daydream. Allow yourself to daydream. Now you're imagining living your best life right now. And I promise you, within one night you can get from absolute despair to imagining yourself living your best life. And now you have safeguards in place for when and if the worst does happen. You now have a plan to get out of that. This is the general tenor of how you give yourself relief. This is the general tenor of how you console yourself. There's a lot more to it. But if you do this, I promise you, you will get out of the quicksand and things will start happening in your life to symbolize that and to show you the work that you've done. So I hope this helped. I am ongoing doing work with my clients to help him see options and to help him get out of this quicksand. I can do the same for you. If you would like to avail yourself of my years of experience in business and consulting to help you with your rapid lifestyle transformation, please, I will put my email in the description. You can email me to get on a call. I even do email coaching, which is a lot better for people who are on smaller budgets. Please subscribe and like to the channel. You will help us get the word out, as well as joining a community of master manifestors. We are going to be going into more interesting videos this week about rapid lifestyle transformation. Until very soon, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. With much love and appreciation, this is Javier, and we'll see you tomorrow.